The sensor array blinked red across 3 different screens, and observer Talum felt his throat sacs tighten with concern. He had been watching the human solar system for 6 rotations now, and the readings kept getting stranger. Something massive was moving near the gas giant's largest moon, but every time he tried to focus the scanners, the signal vanished like smoke in vacuum. Talum adjusted his 4-armed frame in the observation chair and ran another diagnostic. The equipment was functioning perfectly. That was the problem. If the sensors were broken, he could explain these phantom readings to his superiors, but working sensors detecting impossible things, that would require a report, and reports meant attention from the Supreme Council. He decided to wait. Humans were barely worth monitoring anyway. They had refused the Council's generous offer of membership 3 cycles ago, preferring their isolation to the benefits of galactic civilization. Let them play with their primitive rockets and chemical engines while the rest of the galaxy moved forward with proper hyperspace technology. The Council chamber on Drini's thrummed with tense energy as 5 species gathered around the central podium. Leader Morven stood at the center, his scaled hide reflecting the blue light from the holographic display. The image showed Earth, slowly rotating, small and vulnerable. "The humans have become a problem," Morven announced, his voice carrying the weight of authority that had governed the galaxy for 10,000 years. "Our intelligence suggests they are experimenting with prohibited physics, artificial gravity manipulation, exotic matter research, technologies that violate 17 different Council safety protocols." Ambassador Pellin from the Torvaldi delegation raised her crystalline hand. "They refused our oversight. That alone should be grounds for intervention." "Agreed," said Commander Routh, his massive frame dwarfing the other delegates. "My fleet has been ready for deployment for weeks. Give the order and we will bring them into compliance." Morven surveyed the chamber. No dissenting voices. The vote was unanimous. "Very well. Commander Routh, you will take 200 warships to the Sol system. Deliver our ultimatum. They have 48 hours to surrender their military assets and accept Council occupation forces. If they refuse, you are authorized to use any force necessary to neutralize." "Their threat." Routh's mandibles clicked together in satisfaction. "It will be done, Leader Morven. The humans will learn that defiance has consequences." Ambassador Whitfield floated in the viewing lounge of Routh's flagship, watching the blue sphere of Earth grow larger on the display. Around him, the Council fleet stretched out in formation, 200 vessels of various sizes and designs. Impressive, he thought. They really want to make sure we understand how outmatched we are. A door hissed open behind him. Routh entered, flanked by 4 armed guards. "Ambassador Whitfield, I trust you have considered our generous terms." Whitfield turned slowly, his gray hair catching the light from the viewport. "I have, Commander, and I need to inform you that Earth rejects your ultimatum completely." Routh's laugh was a deep rumble that vibrated through the deck plating. "You reject it? You understand what stands outside your world? 200 warships, weapons capable of sterilizing your planet's surface. And you reject our offer." "That's correct," Whitfield said calmly. "We appreciate that you gave us 48 hours to consider, but we don't need that long. The answer is no." "Then you are fools," Routh spat. "Your entire species will pay for this arrogance. We gave you the chance to join civilization peacefully. Now you will be taught your place by force." Whitfield moved toward the shuttle bay, the guards parting to let him pass. At the doorway, he paused and looked back. "Commander Routh, I want to make something very clear. This isn't arrogance. This is a warning. You should turn your fleet around and leave our system while you still can." Routh's mandibles spread wide in what might have been a smile. "Is that a threat, human? You have no fleet, no weapons that can touch us. Your warning is as empty as your courage." "I tried," Whitfield said quietly, then walked toward his shuttle. Science Officer Pellin stared at her console with growing unease. The sensor data made no sense. Gravitational readings throughout the solar system were fluctuating wildly, showing mass concentrations that appeared and disappeared without explanation. She had run diagnostics 17 times. Every test confirmed the sensors were working perfectly. "Commander Ralph," she called out across the bridge. "Sir, I am detecting significant gravitational anomalies throughout this system. The readings suggest massive objects, but visual and electromagnetic scans show nothing." Ralph barely glanced at her station. "Space is full of anomalies, Officer Pellin, asteroid clusters, cometary debris, nothing that concerns a fleet of this magnitude." "Sir, respectfully, these readings are unlike anything in my experience. The mass signatures are enormous, but they don't correspond to any known objects. It's as if something very large is here but invisible to our normal detection methods." "Then your sensors need recalibration," Ralph said dismissively. "We have studied human technology extensively. They barely understand hyperspace theory. They have no stealth capabilities, no cloaking technology. What you're seeing is sensor echo from our own fleet." Pellin wanted to argue but held her tongue. She had served in the Council fleet for 20 cycles and knew when a superior officer had made up his mind. Instead, she made a personal log entry flagging the anomalies for later analysis, if she survived whatever was about to happen. The timer reached 0. 48 hours had expired. Ralph stood on his bridge, surrounded by tactical displays showing his fleet in perfect formation. The human homeworld hung before them, blue and green and utterly defenseless. "All vessels, weapons free," Ralph commanded. "Begin the invasion. Show these primitives the price of defying the Council." On Earth's surface, in a bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Grace Chen watched the same tactical display. Around her, dozens of operators sat at their stations, hands hovering over controls. She took a deep breath and spoke 2 words that would change galactic history forever. "Activate Nightfall." Throughout the solar system, space itself began to shimmer. What had been invisible suddenly became visible only through its absence, like watching air currents through distorted light. Hundreds of massive shapes appeared in the darkness, not through any conventional means, but through the way they bent starlight around their hulls. Ralph's confident expression shattered as his tactical display lit up with contact markers. Hundreds of them, surrounding his fleet from every direction. Ships that hadn't been there a moment ago. Ships his sensors still couldn't properly detect. "What?" he whispered. "What are those things?" Pellin's console screamed warnings as the gravitational readings spiked beyond anything her instruments could measure. "Commander, I'm reading massive gravitic distortions at every contact point. Whatever those vessels are, they're manipulating spacetime itself." The communications channel crackled to life. Admiral Chen's voice filled every Council ship simultaneously. "Council Fleet, this is Earth Defense Command. You were warned. What you're seeing are humanity's dark matter warships. You came here to fight what you could see and understand. That was your first mistake, and your last." Ralph watched in frozen horror as the phantom ships closed in around his fleet like a tightening fist. The destroyer Valiant never saw what killed it. Commander Horvick had just ordered his crew to battle stations when every light on the bridge went dark. Emergency power failed. Life support failed. Even the backup fusion cores died as if something had simply switched off the laws of physics keeping them running. Through the viewport, Horvick watched stars warp and bend in impossible ways. Then the hull began to scream. Metal groaned under pressure that came from nowhere and everywhere at once. Bulkheads compressed inward. Crew members shouted in panic as the deck plates buckled beneath their feet. "Hull breach on all decks," someone screamed into the darkness. But that was wrong. There was no breach, no puncture, no enemy fire. The ship was being crushed from the outside by something that wasn't there. Horvick managed to activate his personal communicator, gasping out a distress call. "This is Valiant to Fleet Command. We are under attack by unknown hostile. No visual contact. No sensor lock. Ship is experiencing catastrophic structural failure from external pressure source. Request immediate assistance." He never finished the transmission. The Valiant's hull collapsed completely, compressed into a sphere of twisted metal barely 20 meters across. 300 crew members died in seconds, crushed to nothing by an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't fight, couldn't escape. On the flagship bridge, Ralph watched 8 more destroyers die in the same way. His tactical officer called out targets, but there was nothing to lock weapons onto. The phantom contacts danced across sensors as gravitational anomalies, but visual scans showed only empty space. "Return fire," Ralph ordered desperately. "All batteries saturate the space around those sensor contacts." Energy beams and missiles streaked into the darkness. Every shot passed through the locations where enemies should have been and continued into empty space. Not a single hit registered. It was like trying to shoot shadows. "Commander, the humans are broadcasting again," the communications officer announced. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the main display. Behind her, Earth's Defensive Operations Center hummed with activity. She looked directly at Ralph with an expression that combined pity and cold determination. "You don't understand what you're fighting," Chen said. "Your entire civilization built its technology around what you could see: electromagnetic radiation, visible matter. You mastered the 4% of the universe that shines and radiates and reflects light. Congratulations. We mastered the other 96%. Ralph felt his blood turn cold. "What are you talking about?" "Dark matter, Commander, the invisible majority of reality. For decades, your scientists told us it was undetectable, untouchable, useless. They were wrong. We found a way to interact with it, to shape it, to build with it. Your sensors are designed to detect normal matter, light, heat, electromagnetic signatures. Our ships are made of something your instruments are blind to. We're not invisible. We're simply made of the universe you forgot existed." A weapons officer shouted from across the bridge. "Sir, additional contacts appearing at bearing 773. Confirmed visual on gravitational lensing effects. I count at least 400 distinct distortions." Ralph stared at the tactical display in disbelief. His 200 ships were now completely surrounded by 400 enemies. Ships that could see him perfectly while remaining effectively invisible. Ships that could destroy his vessels without his weapons ever touching them. "Tactical, what are our options?" he demanded. The tactical officer's voice shook. "Sir, our weapons appear to phase through the enemy vessels without interaction. It's as if they don't exist in normal space. But their weapons affect us perfectly. They're manipulating gravity itself as an offensive system, creating localized fields strong enough to crush our hulls." "Then we retreat," Ralph decided. "All ships scatter pattern Delta 7, make best speed for the system edge. We need to regroup and analyze this technology before we can engage effectively." The fleet began to break formation, each vessel choosing its own vector toward escape. It was standard Council doctrine when facing an unknown superior force, but doctrine assumed the enemy would let you flee. Space around the Council ships suddenly twisted. Ralph felt it through the deck, a sickening lurch as local gravity went haywire. Ships that had been accelerating toward escape found themselves pulled backward, dragged toward invisible anchor points they couldn't identify. "They're using gravity fields to trap us," Pellin shouted from her station. "Sir, they're creating artificial gravity wells throughout the combat zone. Our ships can't achieve escape velocity against the pull." Chen's voice echoed through the communication channel again. "You came to our home with threats of occupation and destruction. Did you really think we would let you leave to bring reinforcements? You wanted to see our military capabilities. Allow me to demonstrate." The dark matter warships revealed themselves through their actions, not by becoming visible, but by showing what they could do. A Council cruiser suddenly found itself pulled in 3 different directions simultaneously, torn apart by competing gravitational forces. Another vessel's shields collapsed as invisible pressure concentrated on a single point, then crushed the ship like an empty container. Ralph's flagship shuddered as something massive passed nearby. The gravitational wake nearly sent the ship spinning. Through the viewport, starlight bent in a pattern that suggested an enormous vessel, easily 5 times the size of his flagship, sliding past like a predator circling wounded prey. "Analysis," Ralph croaked. "How are they doing this?" Pellin worked frantically at her console. "Sir, I believe they've found a way to manipulate dark matter's gravitational properties. Dark matter doesn't interact with electromagnetic forces, which is why we can't detect it normally. But it does interact gravitationally. If they've developed technology to control dark matter's mass distribution, they could create ships that are functionally invisible to our sensors while being able to generate gravitational effects at will. Can we develop countermeasures? Sir, this represents a fundamental physics breakthrough we don't possess. They're manipulating the majority composition of the universe. We're limited to the minority. It would take us decades just to understand the basic principles, much less develop defensive technology. Another 3 ships died as Ralph watched, their hulls imploding under gravitational pressures that defied normal physics. His mighty fleet, the pride of the Council, was being systematically destroyed by an enemy that remained almost completely invisible. Weapons designed to defeat conventional threats were utterly useless against ships that existed in a realm of physics the Council had never learned to touch. "Prepare my personal shuttle," Ralph ordered quietly. "We need to get a survivor back to Council space to warn them. This isn't a battle anymore, it's an extermination." Around his dying flagship, invisible hands continued their deadly work. 5 years before the war, Dr. Rebecca Hall stood in the particle accelerator control room with exhaustion blurring her vision. The experiment had been running for 16 hours straight, and every result showed the same impossible reading. Dark matter particles were interacting with the containment field in ways that violated every theoretical model. "Run it again," she told her assistant. "There has to be an error in the calibration." The assistant, a young physicist named David Park, shook his head. "Rebecca, I've checked everything 3 times. The equipment is working perfectly. What we're seeing is real. Somehow the field configuration is creating a sustained interaction with dark matter. We're not just detecting it anymore. We're touching it." Rebecca stared at the data streaming across her displays. If this was real, if they had actually found a way to interact with dark matter beyond simple gravitational observation, it would change everything. Dark matter made up 85% of the universe's mass. Humans had been playing in a sandbox of normal matter, never realizing they could access the beach beyond. "Don't tell anyone about this yet," she said carefully. "We need to understand what we've discovered before we announce it, especially before the Council finds out." 3 months later, Rebecca stood in front of a secret committee of Earth's military leaders and presented her findings. The room fell silent as she explained the implications. Ships that couldn't be detected by conventional sensors. Weapons that could manipulate gravity itself. A fundamental advantage over every other species in the galaxy. General Williams, who would later become Earth's president during the war, asked the question everyone was thinking. If we develop this technology, will the Council allow it? Rebecca shook her head. The Council has strict protocols against exotic physics research. They claim it's for safety, but really it's about control. If we announce this discovery, they'll demand oversight. They'll limit our research. They'll make sure we never develop anything that could challenge their supremacy. Then we keep it secret, Williams decided, and we turn it into our insurance policy. In the present, Commander Voles reviewed the sensor data from Ralph's destroyed fleet with growing dread. The Council had promoted him after the disaster at Earth, given him command of 500 ships and experimental gravity detection equipment. His orders were simple: succeed where Ralph had failed. "The new sensors are functioning optimally," his science officer reported. "We should be able to detect the gravitational signatures of the human dark matter vessels. They can't hide their mass from properly calibrated equipment." Voles studied the display showing the solar system ahead. Mars hung in the distance, red and cold. His fleet was positioned at the planet's orbital path, ready to advance on Earth with overwhelming force. "Begin the advance," he ordered. "All ships maintain formation. Science teams keep active scans running continuously. The moment we detect gravitational anomalies, I want targeting solutions." The fleet moved forward in perfect coordination. Unlike Ralph's chaotic deployment, Voles had organized his vessels into overlapping defensive spheres. If the humans attacked, they would face concentrated firepower from multiple angles. The first gravity sensor hits appeared 30 minutes later, distinct mass signatures scattered throughout the asteroid belt ahead. Voles felt a surge of triumph. There, we can see them now. Weapons prepare firing solutions on all detected contacts. Targeting computers locked onto the gravitational anomalies. 500 ships prepared to fire in synchronized volleys. Voles gave the order, and space lit up with energy beams and missiles converging on the human fleet positions. Direct hits, dozens of explosions bloomed in the darkness as weapons found their targets. Voles allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Routh had failed because he fought blind, but with proper sensors and proper tactics, the humans were just as vulnerable as anyone else. Then Admiral Chen's voice cut through his celebration. "Commander Voles, congratulations on hitting our decoys. I hope you enjoyed wasting ammunition on empty human cargo haulers we modified to emit gravitational signatures. Would you like to know where our actual fleet is?" The tactical display lit up with new contacts, hundreds of them, above, below, and on all sides of his fleet. The gravity sensors had detected the obvious targets, the ones the humans wanted him to see. But the real dark matter warships had been surrounding him the entire time, simply waiting. "It's a trap," Voles whispered. "All ships' evasive maneuvers break formation and scatter." Too late, the humans struck from every direction simultaneously. But this time, they didn't just use gravity to crush ships. They did something far worse. The asteroid belt around them suddenly came alive. Thousands of rocks, from pebble-sized fragments to chunks hundreds of meters across, began accelerating to impossible speeds. The dark matter ships were manipulating the gravitational fields around every piece of debris, turning the entire belt into a weapon. A boulder the size of a house slammed into a Council destroyer at a significant fraction of light speed. The kinetic impact vaporized both the rock and the ship in a flash of released energy. Then another hit, and another. Hundreds of asteroids, all accelerated to velocities that turned them into relativistic projectiles. Voles's flagship lurched as a cluster of smaller rocks peppered its shields. Alarms screamed across every console. His perfectly organized formation shattered as ships desperately tried to avoid the hail of hypervelocity stone. "They're not just using gravity to attack directly," his science officer shouted over the chaos. "They're using it to weaponize everything around us. Every rock in this belt is now a potential ship killer." "Return fire on the source of the gravitational fields," Voles ordered. "Sir, we can't distinguish between their actual ships and the gravitational distortions caused by accelerating asteroids. The sensor picture is completely saturated. We're blind again." Through the viewport, Voles watched his fleet die, not from sophisticated energy weapons or advanced missiles, but from rocks. Simple asteroids accelerated to deadly speeds by an enemy that had learned to control the fundamental force holding the universe together. Ships exploded. Hulls cracked. Crews died to weapons that had existed in this belt for billions of years, just waiting for someone clever enough to use them. A particularly large asteroid, probably massing several thousand tons, punched through a cruiser's shields like they were nothing. The ship broke in half, atmosphere venting in frozen clouds that sparkled in the dim sunlight. Voles managed to transmit one final message toward Council space before gravitational forces disabled his communication array. "They've mastered the universe we cannot touch. Send no more fleets. We've already lost." His flagship tumbled through space, engines dead, systems failing. Around him, the invisible enemy continued their methodical destruction of everything the Council had sent. The emergency session on Dreenes began with silence. 700 ships destroyed, 15,000 crew members dead, 2 complete fleets obliterated by an enemy the Council had dismissed as primitive. Morven looked at the faces of the other Council leaders and saw fear replacing the arrogance that had defined their civilization for millennia. "We must negotiate," Ambassador Pellin said, her crystalline form dimmed with stress. The humans have demonstrated capabilities beyond our understanding. Continued warfare is suicide. Negotiate? Morven's scales bristled with rage. We are the Galactic Council. We have maintained order for 10,000 years. We do not negotiate with species who refuse our authority. Then what do you propose? Demanded General Horath of the Torvaldi military. We cannot fight what we cannot see. We cannot defeat weapons that turn physics itself against us. Every fleet we send dies without accomplishing anything. Morven stood, his full height imposing in the council chamber. We use the planet killer weapons. We sterilize Earth before their technology spreads. If we cannot have victory, we will have elimination. The chamber erupted in argument. Some supported Morven's extreme solution. Others argued it was barbaric. The debate raged for hours while, across the galaxy, human intelligence officers intercepted every word. Admiral Chen read the translated transcript with cold fury. They wanted to destroy Earth, kill billions of humans, end her species because they had dared to defend themselves. She had hoped the Council might accept defeat gracefully. That hope died with the intercepted transmission. Recall all ships, she ordered. We're done fighting defensively. Assemble strike groups for operation. Retribution, target coordinates, Dreenis, Torvaldi Prime, Hellion 3, Primus Station, and Galvin. We hit all 5 Council Core worlds simultaneously. Her staff officers exchanged worried glances. Captain Morrison spoke carefully. Admiral, attacking their homeworlds represents a massive escalation. Billions of civilian casualties are possible. They just voted to exterminate our entire species, Chen replied flatly. I'm not planning to kill civilians, but I am planning to destroy their capacity to wage war against us. Every military installation, every shipyard, every defensive platform, we show them that if they want total war, we can deliver it to their doorsteps. The Dark Matter fleet divided into 5 strike groups, each assigned to a council homeworld. They traveled through space like ghosts, their gravitational signatures carefully masked to avoid detection. 3 days later, they arrived at their targets simultaneously. Strike Group Alpha appeared in orbit above Dreenis without warning. The planet's defensive fleet, 300 ships strong, scrambled to intercept. Planetary defense platforms activated, their weapons charging. Evacuation alerts screamed across the capital city as billions of civilians looked up at the sky in terror. But the humans didn't fire on the cities. They bypassed the population centers entirely and focused on the military infrastructure. Orbital shipyards first. The massive construction facilities that had built council fleets for centuries suddenly found themselves gripped by gravitational forces. Metal twisted. Docks collapsed. Ships under construction crumpled like discarded paper. The defensive fleet tried to engage, but they might as well have been fighting the void itself. Dark matter warships slipped through their formations, unreachable and unstoppable. Gravity wells captured council vessels and dragged them into planet-killing re-entry trajectories. Captains ejected their crews in escape pods before their ships became meteors. At Torvaldi Prime, Strike Group Beta targeted the industrial heart of council manufacturing. Factories that had produced weapons and equipment for the entire galaxy went dark as gravitational manipulation severed power conduits and crushed fabrication equipment. The economic damage would take decades to repair. Hellion 3 hosted the Council's largest military academy complex. Strike Group Gamma watched training fleets burn in there. Berths as carefully applied gravitational forces compressed fusion cores beyond safe limits. Cadets evacuated in panic as their vessels exploded around them. The next generation of Council military leadership scattered to the escape pods, their education ending in fire and chaos. Primus Station, the galaxy's largest trade hub, became a navigation hazard as Strike Group Delta systematically destroyed docking facilities and cargo handling infrastructure. Ships fled in every direction, their captains terrified of being caught in the human attack. The economic heart of the Council stopped beating as trade routes collapsed overnight. At Galvin, the final strike group eliminated the Council's primary communications network. Relay stations that had coordinated galactic civilization for millennia went silent. Without them, Council worlds couldn't coordinate their defense or organize their response. The attacks lasted 6 hours. When they ended, the Council's military capability had been reduced by 70%. Their economic infrastructure lay in ruins. Their ability to coordinate galactic governance had been shattered, and Admiral Chen had achieved all of it without firing a single shot at civilian populations. She broadcast her message to every Council world simultaneously. "This is Admiral Grace Chen of Earth Defense Command. For weeks, you have sent fleets to destroy our world. You voted to exterminate our species. You believed yourselves superior, untouchable, invincible. Today, we have shown you the truth. We can reach any world in Council space. We can destroy your military forces at will. Your weapons cannot touch us. Your fleets cannot stop us." She paused, letting that sink in across thousands of worlds. "But unlike you, we have no interest in genocide. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We want to be left alone. Here are our terms. The Galactic Council will dissolve immediately. All species will govern themselves freely. You will sign a non-aggression treaty with Earth and honor our sovereignty. You have 24 hours to comply. If you refuse, we will continue dismantling your infrastructure world by world, until you have nothing left but your homeworlds and your pride." On Drini's, Morven watched his reflection in the Council chamber window. Behind the reflection, space was empty. But as he stared, the starlight bent in a familiar pattern. A dark matter warship hung in orbit directly above the Council building, close enough that its gravitational field was causing visible distortion. The humans were watching their deliberations. They had been listening the entire time. And Morven realized with absolute certainty that if he refused these terms, that invisible ship would destroy this building with him inside it. He slumped into his chair, defeated. The Council that had ruled for 10,000 years was finished, and humanity had ended it in less than a month. Morven stared at the dissolution decree on his desk and felt his entire worldview crumbling. 10,000 years of order. 10,000 years of the Council maintaining peace and stability, all ending because one species had been clever enough to find weapons in the darkness between stars. He couldn't accept it, wouldn't accept it. If the Council fell, let humanity fall with it. In a secure laboratory deep beneath the Council Palace, Morven activated a device that had been sealed away for 3,000 years. The quantum destabilization bomb had been created during the last Great War, then banned by treaty as too dangerous to ever use again. It was designed to collapse a star's fusion processes, creating a runaway reaction that would turn any sun into a black hole within hours. Morven loaded the device onto a small stealth ship himself, trusting no one else with his final act of defiance. If he couldn't maintain the Council's dominance, he would ensure humanity paid the ultimate price for destroying it. Earth's sun would collapse. Their entire solar system would be consumed. The dark matter technology would die with them. The stealth ship launched on a trajectory toward Sol, moving slowly to avoid detection, hidden among normal commercial traffic patterns. Morven returned to his chambers and waited for news of Earth's destruction. 16 light hours from Earth, Captain Donald Foster commanded a dark matter patrol vessel on routine surveillance. His crew of 127 specialists monitored the approaches to human space, watching for any Council ships attempting to enter the solar system. The sensor operator, Lieutenant Park, called out from her station. "Captain, I'm detecting a gravitational anomaly on approach vector 77. Small vessel, civilian configuration, but the mass distribution is wrong. Something very heavy in the cargo hold." Foster studied the readings carefully. "Hail them, request identification." "And cargo manifest." No response. The ship continued its steady approach toward Earth, ignoring all communication attempts. "Run a deep scan on that cargo," Foster ordered. "I want to know what they're carrying." Park's face went pale as the scan results appeared. "Sir, quantum destabilization device. Active and armed. If that thing reaches our sun, it will trigger a collapse reaction. The sun will become a black hole. Earth and every planet in the system will be destroyed within days. The bridge went silent. Foster felt his stomach drop. Can we destroy it from here? Negative, sir, the weapons officer replied. The detonation blast from our weapons would trigger the device's failsafe. It will detonate if attacked directly. What about containment? Can we use a gravity field to hold it? Park ran calculations on her console. Sir, we could create a gravity field strong enough to contain the blast radius, but the device operates by manipulating quantum states. The containment field would need to be maintained permanently. Once established, the field cannot be released without triggering detonation. Foster understood immediately. The ship maintaining the containment field would need to stay with the device forever. It would mean trapping our ship and the bomb in an isolated dimension. A one-way trip. He looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew, young people who had joined Earth's defense forces to protect their homeworld. Scientists who had volunteered to operate experimental technology, all of them looking at him for orders. Contact Earth Defense Command, Foster said quietly. Inform Admiral Chen of the situation. Tell her we're going to contain the device, but it will require permanent commitment of our vessel and crew. Chen's response came back within minutes. Captain Foster, I cannot order you to make this sacrifice. If you see another option, take it. But if containment is the only way to save Earth, I leave the decision to you and your crew. Foster activated shipwide communication. All hands, this is the captain. You've all seen the sensor data by now. There's a planet-killer bomb heading for Earth. We can stop it, but only by using our ship as a permanent containment vessel. This means we'll need to take the bomb and ourselves into a pocket dimension. There's no way back. No rescue. We'll be trapped there with that device for eternity. He paused, choosing his words. Carefully, I won't order anyone to make this sacrifice, but I'm asking for volunteers. If you want to transfer to another ship, now is the time. No judgment, no shame. This is beyond any reasonable duty. He waited, seconds stretched into a minute. Then Lieutenant Park spoke up. Sir, where would we transfer to? Any ship in range would take hours to reach us. That bomb will be past us and heading for Earth long before help arrives. We're the only ones in position to stop it. The weapons officer nodded. My family is on Earth, Captain. My parents, my sister and her kids. If we don't stop this thing, they all die. That makes the choice pretty simple. Around the bridge, heads nodded in agreement. The engineering chief called up from below decks. Captain, I'm 57 years old. I've had a good life. If I can end it saving billions of people, including my grandchildren, I call that a worthy trade. One by one, the crew confirmed their decision. Not a single person requested transfer. They all understood what they were choosing. Death would be kinder. At least death would be an ending. What they faced was eternal imprisonment in a dimension of their own creation, forever maintaining the cage that held Earth's destruction at bay. Foster felt pride and heartbreak warring in his chest. Helm, intercept course with that vessel. Engineering, prepare to establish maximum containment field. Science, calculate the dimensional pocket parameters. We're going to swallow that bomb and take it somewhere it can never hurt anyone. The dark matter ship moved to intercept the stealth vessel. When they were close enough, Foster gave the order. Gravitational fields extended outward, wrapping around both the bomb and their own ship. Space itself began to fold, creating a bubble of reality separate from normal space. Foster opened a final channel to Earth. Admiral Chen, this is Foster. We have containment. Tell our families we bought humanity's future. Tell them we went willingly and without regrets. Godspeed, Captain, Chen's voice cracked with emotion. History will remember the 127 who saved Earth. The pocket dimension sealed. From Earth's perspective, the ship and the bomb simply vanished from existence. In their own isolated reality, Foster and his crew settled in for an eternity of vigilance, maintaining the gravitational cage that would keep the quantum destabilization device from ever reaching the universe they had left behind. On Drini's, Morven waited for news of Earth's destruction. When his stealth ship failed to report, he sent inquiries. The ship was gone. The bomb was gone. Somehow, impossibly, the humans had stopped his final revenge. He slumped in his chair, truly defeated at last. 3 months after the Council's collapse, Earth's global parliament chamber buzzed with heated debate. Representatives from every nation argued about humanity's role in the galaxy they had just turned upside down. Outside the chamber, alien delegations from 40 different species waited nervously for Earth's decision. President Williams listened to the arguments with growing frustration. The Hawks wanted an empire. Earth had the most powerful military technology in known space. Why not use it? Seize control while other species were weak and disorganized. Build a human-dominated order to replace the Council. The isolationists wanted the opposite. Pull back to the solar system. Let the aliens sort out their own problems. Earth had fought for independence, not for the responsibility of governing others. Why risk future conflicts by getting involved? Admiral Chen stood to speak, and the chamber fell quiet. She had earned respect during the war, not just from her victories, but from her restraint. "We have a third option," she said. "Neither empire nor isolation. We can offer something the galaxy has never had, a voluntary alliance based on mutual defense and free trade. No species forced to join. No military restrictions on members, no mandatory technology sharing, just cooperation between equals." "And who leads this alliance?" asked the representative from Japan. "If Earth doesn't lead, someone else will dominate it. If we do lead, we become an empire by another name." "Then we don't have a leader," Chen replied. "We have a council, but this time it's one where every member has equal voice. Decisions require majority consent. No single species can impose its will on the others, and most importantly, any member can leave whenever they choose." The debate continued for hours. Finally, a vote was called. The measure passed by a narrow margin. Earth would propose a federation based on voluntary cooperation and mutual respect. Williams addressed the waiting alien delegations in a broadcast heard across the galaxy. The Galactic Council ruled through force and fear. They demanded submission and punished independence. "We offer you something different. A federation where membership is a choice, not a requirement. Where your sovereignty is respected, not violated. Where different species cooperate because they want to, not because they're forced to." The response was mixed. Some species saw opportunity. The Hellion delegation signed the charter immediately, grateful for any structure after the chaos of the Council's fall. Others were suspicious. Observer Talim, representing the species that had monitored Earth before the war, voiced the concerns many shared. "How do we know Earth won't abuse its military advantage?" Talim asked. "You possess technology that makes you effectively invincible. You could destroy any member species that displeases you. Why should we trust your promises?" Chen answered by projecting an image. The lunar surface, where a new memorial had been constructed. 127 names carved into stone, surrounded by Earth flowers growing in pressurized gardens. Those names represent the crew of the vessel Foster. They died stopping a Council weapon that would have destroyed Earth. They volunteered for eternal imprisonment to save billions of lives, including alien lives in this solar system. She let that sink in before continuing. "That memorial represents humanity's philosophy. Power without moral restraint is tyranny. We learned that lesson centuries ago through bitter experience. We won't repeat the Council's mistakes. The Federation will be different because it must be, because anything else betrays what Foster's crew died protecting." Talim studied the memorial image for a long moment. "Words are easy, Admiral. Actions prove intent. Show us this Federation can work." Over the following months, the Federation took shape. 30 species signed the initial charter. Human engineers began teaching dark matter physics to allied scientists, sharing the technology that had won the war. Former Council species worked alongside humans on joint defense projects. Trade routes reopened under Federation protection, with human dark matter warships escorting merchant convoys. Not everyone joined. Some species preferred independence. Others formed their own regional alliances. The Federation respected those choices, proving through restraint that membership was truly voluntary. On the lunar memorial, Admiral Chen stood with a group of visitors from different species. They had come to pay respects to the humans who had saved Earth. As they read the names carved in stone, Chen explained what each crew member had sacrificed. "This is why we fight," she told them. "Not for conquest, not for dominance, but to protect, to preserve life, to build something better than what came before." The alien delegates seemed moved. Several added their own offerings to the memorial, flowers and tokens from their homeworlds, honoring the sacrifice even though Foster's crew had been human. 6 months into the Federation's existence, everything changed. A deep space monitoring station on the galactic rim detected something impossible. Ships approaching from beyond the galaxy. Hundreds of them. Technology signatures unlike anything in Federation databases. The science team analyzed the data with growing alarm. "These vessels are using exotic physics we don't recognize," the lead researcher reported. "Their energy output suggests power generation methods beyond our current understanding, and they're heading into Federation space on a direct intercept course." The alert went out across all member worlds. Admiral Chen convened an emergency session with Federation military commanders. The conference room was crowded with representatives from a dozen species, all staring at the tactical display showing the approaching fleet. "We need to determine their intentions," Talum suggested. "They might be peaceful explorers. Or they might be looking for their next conquest," countered a Torvaldi general. "And our dark matter technology may have advertised our location across the galaxy. When we started manipulating gravity on a massive scale, we created detectable ripples in spacetime," someone noticed. Chen studied the display thoughtfully. "Either way, we need to be ready. All Federation vessels are to assemble at Rally Point Omega. Human ships will form the primary defense line, but I want mixed species task forces supporting each position. If we're going to face this threat, we face it together." The room erupted in coordination efforts. Species that had been enemies months ago now worked together, planning joint tactics and sharing intelligence. The Federation was about to face its first real test. Williams joined Chen at the display after the others had left. "You think we can handle this?" Chen looked at the approaching contacts, still weeks away but definitely coming. "Foster's crew bought us time to build something better than the Council. Now we get to prove it was worth the price. The galaxy fights as one this time, and whoever is coming better be ready for that." Outside, the memorial gleamed in Earth's light. 127 names watching over the Federation they had died to make possible.